Good morning, Grandview and friends. What a joy it is to be able to share in worship this morning. We are continuing in our sermon series called Turning, which is based in part on the music of Frank Turner. Today we'll focus our attention on forgetting and remembering. I have a couple announcements to share with you. We are currently updating our directory, and one of the features of our new database is the ability for members and friends to update their own contact information. The link was sent in our e-alert the last couple weeks, and it's also on the website. As we're updating our database, we're actually asking for a little more information than will be available to individuals on the app. So please update your information, and please send pictures. We want to see your beautiful faces. For our way forward, we are holding our final informational meeting by Zoom tomorrow evening at 6:30. The link has been sent out in our e-alerts, and it's on the website, and an e-alert will also go out tomorrow as a final reminder of that. Ballots for the mailing were sent out on Friday, so you should be on the lookout for that sometime before too long. And all responses, all votes need to be delivered back through the mail or in person by February 9th. All of the information about how to vote and the whole process is in the letter that's coming along with your ballot. You can refer to the messenger. You can go on the website to see, to find all the information that you need. And really, most importantly, we ask that prior to voting, as you're reading through the letter, as you're reading through the resolution, that you just take time to prayerfully consider your response to this very, very important vote in the life of Grandview. If you're looking for a way to honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one way you can do that is to contact Governor Wolf's office this week, the 20th and the 21st, to advocate with others for equitable distribution of COVID funding to schools. All the information about that is on our website, so please go and take a look at that. And finally, we want to take a moment to thank Paige Wagner, who's going to come up and come in front of the camera rather than be behind it as she always has been. We want to thank you for all of your help this spring, this summer, and this fall. Paige was really instrumental in helping us get our live stream up and going. Paige does a lot of video editing behind the scenes. She does whatever it is that we need, and she does an awful lot of things that we want. So she has always been willing to jump in, and we miss you already. We're giving you a small gift, which will be in your email about 4 minutes ago. So take a look at that. We just wanted to say thank you, and we miss you already.
Thank you.
Look to your e-alert and the website to see all of the ministries of Grandview. We continue to be a very active and busy church family, and we are so very blessed to be in ministry together.
As we are called to worship today, we call to mind the history of the neighborhood in which our church resides, which began with written rules forbidding non-white people to live here. The history of our town, which sought but failed to protect the last 16 Conestoga people from the murderous Paxton boys. The history of our county, which is a place where people experience all sorts of prejudice, yet is also a world-renowned refuge for refugees. And we call to mind those who resisted saying, "Peace, peace," when there was no peace. Those who have shown our nation the way to turn and the toughness required to go God's way, such as Thaddeus Stevens and Lydia Hamilton Smith and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we remember the words of Dr. King's final speech. It's all right to talk about long robes over yonder and all their symbolism, he said. But ultimately, people want some suits and dresses and shoes to wear down here. It's all right to talk about streets overflowing with milk and honey, he said, but God has commanded us to be concerned about slums down here and God's children who can't eat 3 square meals a day. It's all right to talk about the New Jerusalem, he said, but one day God's preacher must talk about the new New York, the new Atlanta, the new Philadelphia, the new Los Angeles, the new Memphis, Tennessee. Friends, it's time now for us to talk about the new Lancaster, the new Manheim Township, new Hempfield, a new Strasburg, a new Ephrata, a new New Holland, a new Grandview Heights, and perhaps even a new Grandview Church and a new United Methodist Church. So we call upon the God we know through Christ to lead us in that holy conversation.
Soul cries out with a joyful shout that the God of my heart is great, and my spirit sings of the wondrous things that you bring to the ones who wait. You fixed your sight on your servant's plight, and my weakness you did not spurn. So from east to west shall my name be blessed, could the world be about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near and the world is about to turn. Though I am small, my God, my all, you work great things in me, and your mercy will last to the depths of the past, to the end of the age to be. Your very name puts the proud to shame, and for those who would for you yearn, you will show your might, put the strong to flight, for the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near and the world is about to turn. From the halls of power to the fortress tower, not a stone will be left on stone. Let the king beware, for your justice tears every tyrant from his throne. The hungry poor shall weep no more for the food they can never earn. There are tables spread, every mouth be fed, for the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the death draws near and the world is about to turn. Though nations rage from age to age, we remember holds us fast. God's mercy must deliver us from the conqueror's crushing grasp. This saving word that our forebears heard is the promise which holds us bound, till the spear and rod can be crushed by God, who is turning the world around. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near and the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. away all tears, for the dawn draws near and the world is about to turn.
Good morning, friends. Miss Kate here. Let's start with our God-filled good morning before we dive into our children's message today. So on the count of 3, let's build God into our space. 1, 2, 3. Good morning! And now God's in our space. This morning we're going to be reflecting on the scripture from Jeremiah being shared in worship, along with remembering Dr. Martin Luther King this weekend. We're going to be connecting how we remember the past with our current events and also follow God's call for us. So let's start with a couple questions I want you to think about. Do you feel like it's hard to be the bearer of bad news? Isn't it sometimes hard to stand up for what you believe? And why is it so hard to remember things sometimes? But sometimes God pushes us and encourages us to do challenging things at challenging moments, don't you feel? Well, in the news in 2020, and we may continue to see it in 2021, we may have seen images and words that remind us of the past and history that we've learned about, maybe in school or from our family or from a documentary or a TV show. Words for peace, justice, words for change, words of hate, words of love. So let's play a little game called What Do You Remember? In a moment, I'm going to be sharing an image from the book called Voice of Freedom, Fannie Lou Hamer, Spirit of the Civil Rights Movement, and that's from this book. And it's kind of like little snippets and stories of her story, and there's artwork that goes along with it. And I want to use one of those images, and I want you to think about the symbols that are within it, and I want you to see what you remember. Okay, so now that I've showed you that picture, and maybe some of those images or words were hard for you depending on who you are or the story that you've lived or from what you've heard, but I'm now going to show it to you again. And this time, things are going to actually be missing from the images, some of the words and the symbols. So on the count of 3. As you're looking at this image, I want you to think about, what do you remember from the first image that I showed you? Maybe you remember the peace sign over the one side, or the word freedom now at the top, or maybe the KKK, or the flag that was on the bottom, or maybe the people stood out to you. Well, many pieces of this original image hold pain, hold deep meaning, hold hope for things of the past and for our current times. I want you to think to yourself, why do you remember certain things? And why does it stick out to you? What made it hold importance for you? Maybe what carries that pain for you? Why have you forgotten things, or why didn't it stick with you? Most likely because something did stand out. So in closing, kind of thinking about what do you remember, what do you not remember, I want to think about how the Bible story of Jeremiah reveals that he reacts humanly in the story. But God required that he step up boldly and accept his calling. That's true for our lives. Life can be tough, can't it? But God promises that we can wholeheartedly place our trust in God. When God calls us to do something, we need to try to trust him and know that the call may affect and impact the things in our lives, may impact our communities. Maybe it will be for the good or for the harder. Here's a quote for you. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. I want you to picture a staircase and think about that. Sometimes, especially if it's a dark area, taking that step can be hard and challenging. That's a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. So today I want to leave you with thinking about two things. What impact or importance does something need to have for you to remember it? How do you follow the Lord even when it's difficult? Like during a pandemic, or when you have disagreements with our parents or our teachers or our friends or our siblings? How do you process the things that are happening in our world and in our country? Well, know that God is there with you, and that your church family and community, even though we're not all together, is there with you to help support you in these times. So friends, I really want you to think about those things, and I want to leave you with a blessing. I pray for the past, I pray for the future, and I pray that we can find hope in our difficult moments to come. Bye, guys.
I've got the 21st century survival blues, a condition brought on by watching the news. Things have been quiet for far too long, and if I know human beings, things are gonna go wrong. We were raised in a glade of unsustainable peace. Not many of us ever have to live on our knees. I'm scared that I won't have the strength that it takes to stand up when the levee breaks.
Will you pray with me? Dearest God, on this Human Relations Day and the weekend we celebrate and honor Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and legacy, we ask for your mercy and grace to forgive us. Forgive us that we need to have a Human Relations Day, that we need a day or a weekend or a month or years to work to seek each other's best. A reminder to look upon our neighbors as neighbors and not as people of them or of us. That each and every human is created in your divine image, each and every. The levee of hate has breached. We are surrounded by a rising tide of anger and distrust, suspicion and fear. We are bombarded in this 21st century, day in and day out, in the news and on social media, of arguing and fighting and